I'm Rachel Whitman, 35 years old, and for most of my life I've been the dependable one, the one who never caused a fuss, who paid on time, who remembered birthdays even when mine was forgotten. My father's 65th birthday dinner was supposed to be a celebration, a moment to honor him. Instead, it became the night I realized I'd spent decades asking for scraps from a table I paid to set. My sister looked me in the eye and said, "This table's for family only," and pointed me toward a fold-out chair by the trash. I didn't make a scene. I didn't cry. I just smiled. And something in me finally broke free. Before I go any further, let me know where you're listening from in the comments, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever been the one holding everything together while being left out. I grew up in Indiana in a town where people waved from their porches, and you didn't lock your doors unless it was Sunday and you were running late to church. My parents weren't wealthy, but they were proud. They believed in hard work, in manners, and in not airing your business to strangers. My older sister Caroline was the star from the start. She had a way of lighting up a room before she even opened her mouth. Teachers adored her, neighbors bragged about her, and my parents, well, they just beamed. I was quieter, not shy, just easy to miss. I got straight A's, kept my head down, never gave them a reason to worry. When Caroline got grounded for sneaking out, I was the one who made her bed and covered for her. When Dad needed help balancing the checkbook, I figured it out, even though I was only 14. That's the kind of daughter I was, useful, reliable, but somehow never quite enough. After college, I moved to Chicago and started my own marketing firm. I built a life from the ground up, nothing flashy, just solid. I still called home every Sunday. I still drove back for birthdays and holidays, even if I ended up on the pull-out couch or with the bill. When Dad's car broke down last summer, it was me who paid for the repairs. No one asked. They didn't need to. It was just expected. So when Mom called a few weeks ago, her voice all sweet like syrup, and said they were planning something special for Dad's 65th, I didn't hesitate. Of course I told her. Just let me know the details. A few hours later, I got the real message. They needed someone to put down the deposit for the reservation, just to hold the space. It was at this fancy place Dad loved, something with white tablecloths and valet parking. I transferred the money that afternoon, no questions asked. I picked out a dress I hadn't worn in years, wrapped a small gift in navy paper, and arrived early like always. The restaurant was the kind of place where everything glowed, walls washed in golden light, waiters moving like shadows. I gave the hostess my name and followed her upstairs, heels clicking softly on the marble. But when I walked into the private dining room, something stopped me cold. Caroline was already holding court at the long mahogany table, laughing with her glass raised. Mom sat beside her in pearls, Dad beaming like he'd just won the lottery. Not one of them looked my way. And at the far end of the room, just off to the side, was a single folding chair by the wall, beside a trash bin and a bus cart. The smell of shrimp and lemon hung faintly in the air. Caroline turned her eyes bright, her voice loud enough for the whole room. "Rachel, glad you made it." She smiled and then nodded toward the side. "Sorry, this table's for family only, but we set you up just over there." Someone chuckled. I think it was Uncle Dan. No one said a word in my defense. Not Mom, not Dad, not even the cousin I once drove 6 hours for after her car broke down in the middle of nowhere. And that's where I'll leave it for now, because the moment I sat down in that chair, something in me shifted, and by the end of that night, I wouldn't be the same person anymore. The chair was cold. It wobbled slightly when I sat down, one of the legs catching on the uneven edge of the floor tile beside the trash cart. I didn't take off my coat. I didn't touch the water glass the waiter placed in front of me. I just sat there, still holding the small gift-wrapped box I'd brought for my dad, and tried to quiet the heat rising in my throat. From across the room, I could hear the laughter, forks clinking against plates. Caroline's voice floating over the table as she launched into another story. my mother's soft chuckle, my father's deep laugh, full and easy. The smell of roasted garlic and seafood drifted toward me, mingling with the faint sour note of lemon peels from the bus cart beside me. No one came over. I told myself it didn't matter, that maybe the chair was a mistake, that someone would realize where they'd seated me and come fix it. But the minutes passed, and no one said anything. Caroline raised a toast. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. Someone pulled out a camera and started taking pictures. My name wasn't called, my glass wasn't raised, and still no one looked my way. I glanced at the long table, 15 seats all filled. Name cards lined up neatly, champagne flutes half empty, the kind of table you'd expect to see in a magazine. I'd paid the deposit for that table. I'd reserved the space. I'd transferred the money without asking for a dime back. And here I was, 2 feet away, invisible. The waiter didn't ask if I wanted to order. He didn't bring a menu. When he walked past me the 3rd time, I caught his eye briefly. He offered a tight smile, then looked away. Someone leaned back in their chair and knocked over a water glass. The table burst into laughter again. Caroline stood and walked around refilling wine glasses. She stopped beside Dad and handed him a wrapped gift, something flat and shiny. He opened it carefully and held up a framed photo. "That's from Cape Cod," she said. "Remember that trip?" He smiled. "Of course I do. I remembered it too. That was the summer I stayed back to finish a college internship. The photo didn't include me. I don't think they noticed." At some point, I folded my coat tighter around my waist. The corner of the gift box pressed into my leg. It had a custom engraving on the inside, a quote Dad used to say when I was little. I'd had it printed on a metal plate and framed it in oak. I thought he might hang it in his office. He never opened it, never even knew I brought it. The sound of Caroline laughing drifted back toward me. She was telling a story about surprising Dad with a new golf set. He clapped her on the back, grinning. Mom leaned toward them, nodding. I kept my eyes on the floor. Then I saw the waiter again, moving toward their table with a black folder in his hand. It was slim and neat, the kind restaurants use when the bill could pay for someone's mortgage. He stopped beside Caroline and handed it off discreetly. But I saw his eyes flick toward me just for a second. Then he looked again, longer this time, clearly unsure. He scanned the table, then checked the folder, then turned slowly and walked toward me. I sat up a little straighter. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, voice quiet but polite. "The total for the evening is 4 9/12. Should I run the final charge on the same card used for the deposit?" For a moment the room went quiet, utterly still. You could have heard a glass shift on linen. All eyes turned to me. Caroline stopped mid-sip. My mother's mouth pressed into a hard line. My father didn't say anything, he just looked down at his napkin. I met the waiter's eyes, held them steady. "Not my table," I said. He blinked. "I'm sorry I paid the deposit," I said louder this time. "But I was told this table was for family only." Someone made a sound, sharp and surprised. It might have been Aunt Lynn. Or maybe Mom. Caroline's face flushed deep red. "Oh my God, Rachel," she hissed. "Don't do this. I'm not doing anything I said. Just following the seating chart." Dad cleared his throat. "Honey, come on. You already paid half. Might as well just settle it." That's when something stopped inside me. That phrase, "might as well," like my name was a checking account, like everything I did came with a receipt. I stood up slowly. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You're right," I said. "I did pay the deposit. I gave up my weekend. I booked the place. I even made sure Mom had a driver so she wouldn't have to park downtown." I turned to Caroline, and for that I got a folding chair and a view of the trash bin. She looked away. I scanned the table one last time. "So now you all get to figure out the rest." Then I turned and walked out. I didn't rush. I didn't look back. The waiter still stood frozen behind me, black folder in hand. The only sound was the soft click of my heels against the marble floor. Outside, the air hit hard, cold, and sharp. I didn't bother zipping my coat. My fingers trembled a little, but not from the cold. It was something else, something like clarity. I walked 6 blocks before I even noticed where I was. When I finally got home, my phone was already buzzing. A text from Mom. "Rachel, please call me. We need to talk. One from Caroline. You just had to make it about you. Then Dad. You embarrassed everyone. I let them sit unread. Then the screen lit up again. A name I hadn't expected. Madison, Caroline's ex-girlfriend. I stared at the name for a long second, then picked up. Rachel. Her voice was soft. "Yeah," I said. "Hi. I hope it's okay I called. I was at the dinner." I blinked. What I came with Claire. Caroline told everyone I was her friend from yoga. She laughed once dry. Typical. What happened after I left? She tried to act like it was all a big misunderstanding, Madison said. Blame the waiter, said you were being sensitive. But her face. Rachel, you humiliated her, and you didn't even raise your voice. I didn't answer. I just wanted to say I saw it, Madison said after a moment. I've always seen it. Seen what? The way they treat you. Like you're just expected to take care of everything. Like you're not really there unless they need something. I exhaled. Why tell me this now? Because you walked out, she said. And I don't think they expected that. It shook something. I stood there for a long time after the call ended, staring at the bottle of wine I never opened, and the gift box still resting in my purse, and I knew this wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning. The next morning, I woke to silence. No texts, no calls, no good mornings. The family group chat, which had been quiet for months except for the occasional birthday photo or forwarded prayer chain from Aunt Margie, had gone completely still. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the half-unwrapped gift still sitting in my purse. The card was tucked under the ribbon. I hadn't written much, just a short note. It felt too small to say what I really wanted, but now I knew it wouldn't have made a difference. By noon, the quiet cracked. A message from my mother came first. Rachel, we really need to talk. You hurt your father. Please call. 10 minutes later, my father chimed in. Let's not make this bigger than it is. Just apologize and we move on. Then Caroline, you humiliated me in front of the entire family. I hope it was worth it. I didn't answer any of them. Not out of spite, just stillness. I had already said what I needed to say. I wasn't going to explain it again. And I wasn't going to apologize for sitting next to a trash cart while they toasted without me. By late afternoon, a voice message arrived from Caroline. I didn't open it right away. I just let it sit there on the lock screen while I washed the dishes, swept the kitchen floor, and folded the laundry I'd forgotten in the dryer. Finally, I played it. Her voice came through sharp and clipped. I hope you're happy. You made Dad's birthday all about you. You always play the victim, Rachel. Maybe if you weren't so cold, people would actually want you at the table. I stood at the sink listening. The voice message ended. I didn't replay it. Instead, I dried my hands, walked over to my desk, and opened my laptop. I pulled up the email thread from the restaurant, then the invoice from the florist, the receipt for the driver service I booked for Mom, the framed print I ordered for Dad. I added it all up, deposit flowers, gift transportation. I hadn't asked anyone to split it with me. They hadn't offered. I started a new email, BCC'd the entire family group. Subject last night. Hi all. Since there seems to be confusion about my intentions, I thought it might help to clarify with facts. Attached are the receipts for the dinner deposit, $1,000 floral arrangements, $350, Dad's gift, $180, and the town car service for Mom $120. All of this was handled on my card. No one offered to reimburse, and I didn't ask. I did it because I was told this dinner was about honoring Dad. But I was also told quite clearly that I wasn't considered part of the family that night. I won't be covering the remaining $4,912. I didn't eat. I wasn't seated. I wasn't welcome. And frankly, I'm tired of paying for rooms that won't even offer me a chair. Best Rachel, I hit send. It was done. The first reply came from Jenna, my cousin. We hadn't spoken much in the past few years, but she was at the dinner. She'd seen where they seated me. Good for you. We saw what happened. It was cruel. Then Uncle Neil. Wish I'd had the guts to speak up. I'm sorry. Even Aunt Margie wrote back. Just 4 words about time someone said it. But from my parents, nothing. From Caroline, silence. Until 2 hours later, a new number lit up my screen. Hi, this is Madison's friend Claire. We met once at a wedding. I just wanted to say that email, it's making the rounds. People are talking, and they're not on Caroline's side this time. I stared at the message for a moment, then leaned back in my chair. For years I had carried the weight, the expectations, the responsibility, the unspoken rule that I would cover whatever they needed quietly and without asking for anything back. And now for the first time, I wasn't cleaning it up. That night, I opened my banking app and scrolled to the shared family fund I'd created 4 years earlier. I'd kept it stocked with emergency savings quietly and consistently. There was just under $30,000 in it. I remembered every time it had been used, Caroline's broken AC unit in July, Dad's dental surgery last spring, Mom's just until the refund clears gas bill last winter. I moved the entire balance to my personal account and closed the shared fund. 10 minutes later, Caroline called. I didn't answer. She called again, then a third time. The 4th time I picked up. Rachel. What the hell, she snapped. No hello, no pause, just anger. The joint fund is gone. I just tried to pay my car note. I closed it, I said calmly. You what? You can't just... I can. And I did. She didn't speak right away. Then, you're being vindictive. No, I said. I'm being done. She exhaled hard into the phone. You've never talked to me like this before. I used to think I had to earn love by staying quiet, I said. But love that only exists when I'm useful isn't love at all. I hung up. Then I opened my notes app and started a new list. Not groceries or errands, just things I wasn't doing anymore. Covering family bills at the last minute, driving 6 hours for holidays only to be ignored, sending gifts that never got acknowledged, pretending silence didn't hurt. It was a long list. I didn't feel guilty for any of it. Later that night, Madison messaged again. You okay? I heard Caroline spiraling. She's accusing everyone of siding against her. I typed back steady and clear. Me, let her spiral. I'm not her axis anymore. The next morning I opened my email and saw something I hadn't expected. Subject, Rachel. I owe you an apology from Dad. I stared at it for a full minute before clicking. It was short. No excuses, no sugar. I didn't see it. That's on me. Your sister has always taken up all the air in the room, and you just made it easy for us to ignore that. I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk, I'll listen. No excuses. He signed it simply, Dad. I didn't cry. I didn't reply. But it was the first time he'd ever written something without asking me to fix it, and maybe that was where it started to turn. Not a reunion, but maybe a recognition. The email from my dad sat open on my screen long after I'd read it. I didn't move for a while. I just let the words settle. There was no flattery in them. No request, no guilt, no sugarcoating. Just a plain sentence I didn't see it. That's on me. It didn't fix anything. but it was the first thing in a long time that didn't ask me to bend. I closed the laptop slowly and went to make tea. The house was quiet. The heat clicked through the baseboards. A little while later, I opened a new note on my phone and typed a question I hadn't let myself ask before. If I stopped showing up, what would actually happen? By that afternoon, I had the beginnings of a list, not of tasks or reminders, but of boundaries, simple, steady ones. I started small. I turned off notifications for the family group chat. I removed myself from the shared holiday planning spreadsheet. I deleted the automatic birthday gift alerts I'd set years ago. And I didn't tell anyone. That weekend, I cleaned out the storage bench by my front door. It was full of things I'd picked up over the years, extra wrapping paper, unused hostess gifts, a stack of thank you cards I'd never sent. I paused on one box tied with gold ribbon, a backup gift I'd bought just in case someone forgot to bring one. I set it aside. That Sunday, I didn't call home. It felt strange, like missing a step going down the stairs. But when the silence came, it wasn't sharp. It was quiet, like space I hadn't known I needed. I opened the windows, even though it was still chilly. Let the air come through. I lit a candle in the kitchen, made a slow lunch. For the first time in a while, I didn't check my phone every 10 minutes. The next morning, I made an appointment with a therapist. I didn't wait for a crisis. I just picked a name from the list my insurance sent and clicked confirm. The office was a third-floor walk-up in a converted brick townhouse. No receptionist. Just a small waiting area with soft chairs and a bowl of hard candy no one touched. Her name was Laura. She looked about my age with quiet eyes and a way of not interrupting that made me feel like I didn't have to rush. I told her about the birthday dinner, about the folding chair, about the message from Caroline. She didn't interrupt. She didn't lean in like it was gossip. She just nodded and waited. We talked about what it means to be useful, how people treat silence like consent, how sometimes love isn't withheld, it's just conditional. By the third session, I stopped talking about my family. I started talking about myself. 2 weeks later, I booked a trip to Santa Fe. I'd meant to go the year before, but postponed it first for Caroline's last-minute engagement party, then again for Dad's dental surgery. This time I didn't tell anyone. I just went. I stayed at a small adobe-style inn with blue shutters and creaky floors. I walked the art market every morning, linen pants brushing against my ankles, coffee in hand before the sun had fully cleared the hills. I bought a small silver ring from a vendor who made everything by hand. I wrote in a notebook I'd packed without thinking. Each day, I added a line to a new list. Things I no longer needed permission for, saying no without explanation. Choosing silence over obligation. Missing a birthday without sending a gift. Not answering the phone. Not being responsible for how someone else feels. On the third night, I had dinner alone at a little restaurant that used to be a house. No music, just the sound of cutlery and low conversation. While I waited for my meal, I scrolled through the photos on my phone. Near the end of the roll, I stopped. It was a picture from the birthday dinner, not mine, but someone else's. I must have been tagged by mistake. The table was clear and gleaming, filled with faces leaning in close arms raised in mid-toast. And in the background, slightly out of focus, there I was, alone, still in my coat, next to the trash cart. I stared at the image, not because it shocked me, but because it didn't. That version of me. She still brought the gift. She still smiled even when no one looked. She still hoped quietly to be included. But I wasn't her anymore. When I got back home, I went straight to the kitchen and unpacked the bottle of wine I'd brought to the birthday dinner. I set it on the counter and left it there. Then I opened my calendar and created a new event. Dinner at my place Saturday. No cousins, no aunts, no obligation. Just 6 friends I'd come to count on. No assigned seats, no formality. Just laughter, mismatched plates, and a meal where everyone brought something. And for once, no one sat near the trash. The night of the dinner party, I set the table slowly. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. 6 plates, cloth napkins that didn't match, a little vase of tulips from the Saturday market. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I'd cooked lemon-roasted chicken and a pear salad from a recipe I found online. My friend Lauren brought wine. Marcus came with a loaf of fresh bread wrapped in a dish towel. There was no music playing, just the soft clatter of glassware and someone's quiet laughter from the hallway as coats were unzipped and hung over the back of chairs. We sat down without ceremony. No head of the table, no place cards. Just plates passed by hand and stories traded like postcards from different corners of life. Somewhere between the second glass of wine and the cinnamon tart I'd bought from the bakery down the street, my friend Talia lifted her glass. To Rachel, she said, for reminding us that family isn't always who you're born to. I smiled. Not because it was perfect, but because no one sat near the trash. The next morning I stepped outside early. The air was still cool. The light hadn't fully stretched over the sidewalk. I took my coffee to the bench near the corner and watched the street slowly wake up. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked, once, then stopped. Back inside, I opened my phone. A message from Madison had come in overnight. Just checking in. You okay? I typed back one line. Better than I've been in a long time. Then I opened the file where I'd been keeping that list, the one I'd started in Santa Fe. I added a new entry, host your own table. Invite people who show up empty-handed, but never empty-hearted. It was nearly noon when Caroline called again. I let it ring twice, then picked up. Rachel, she started, I heard about your little dinner. I didn't respond. I just think it's funny how now you're suddenly the victim, like one meal makes up for ignoring this family. I haven't ignored anyone, I said evenly. You walked away, you closed the account, you embarrassed everyone. I stopped pretending. She exhaled sharply. You're doing this to punish us. No, I said. I'm just not playing anymore. You've never talked to me like this. I used to think keeping the peace meant keeping quiet. She didn't say anything after that, just hung up. That afternoon, I sorted through a stack of mail that had been piling up. In between the grocery flyer and a charity appeal, I found a letter in a plain envelope. No return address, just my name in familiar cursive. I opened it slowly. Inside was a short note. Rachel, I've reread your email more than once. I didn't know how far we'd pushed you or how much you held in just to stay close. I was wrong. If you never want to come back, I understand. But if you ever do, I promise not to seat you by the trash. It was signed Mom. I folded the letter and set it in the drawer beside my journal. I didn't cry. I didn't frame it. I didn't feel the need to respond. Instead, I went for a walk. Not the kind you take to clear your head, but the kind you take when your feet know where they're going and your thoughts finally feel quiet. I passed the little bookstore where I used to buy last-minute holiday gifts, the coffee shop where I once worked on budgets for family trips I never enjoyed. I stopped at the bench again on the way home. That evening, I opened a new document on my laptop. I titled it, Rules for My Table, Not a Dining Table, the one inside me, the place where I hosted my worth, where I set the terms for who gets to stay and who has to leave. Rule 1. No one who makes me feel small gets to eat first. Rule 2. Love that comes with conditions is not love, it's performance. Rule 3. Silence is not kindness when it costs you your dignity. Rule 4. If you're not welcome at their table, build your own. I saved the file, closed the laptop, finished the tea beside me. The light from the window stretched across the floor, and for the first time, I felt the beginning of something solid. Not loud, not triumphant, but rooted. The letter from my mother stayed in the drawer beside my journal. I didn't reread it. I didn't call. I let it rest there, quiet, folded, finished. Over the next few days, the group chat stayed quiet. Not one forwarded meme. No awkward checking in texts. No updates about Caroline's work drama or Dad's latest appointment. It was as if they were waiting for me to come back and reset the rhythm. I didn't. I poured my energy elsewhere. I signed up for a pottery class at the rec center near my apartment. I started meal prepping again, not out of necessity, but because it felt good to cook for myself and only myself. I rearranged the living room furniture. I slept in on Sundays without the usual guilt. Then, one afternoon, just after I'd finished cleaning the kitchen, my phone buzzed. A message from Madison. "Hey, just a heads up. Your email, it's still being talked about. Apparently someone showed it to Aunt Linda last weekend. She's not siding with Caroline." I sat down at the table. My tea had gone cold. I didn't reply right away. 5 minutes later, another text came through. Also, someone forwarded it to Claire. She showed it to her parents. "People are finally seeing it. You're not the one they're upset with." I set the phone down face up. It wasn't a victory. It didn't feel like winning anything. But it shifted something. For so long my role had been fixed, steady, quiet, dependable. Now people were seeing a version of me that didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't reach for the check out of habit. And they didn't seem angry. They seemed aware. That night, I lit a candle in the living room and opened my laptop. The file was still there, rules for my table. I added 2 more. Rule 5. I'm not a resource, I'm a person. Rule 6. The people who show up only when they need something don't get to call it love. Later that week, I got a message from Uncle Neil. Just one line took me a while to understand what I saw that night. I get it now. Then from Jenna Caroline's upset, but most of us aren't fooled anymore. You were right to walk out. No demands, no guilt, just acknowledgments, small steady ones. The next morning I pulled out the old file folder where I kept financial documents. Warranties, service records, insurance paperwork. Tucked inside was a printout of the original emergency fund I'd created for the family, the one I'd quietly funded over the years. Notes in the margins, account numbers, transfers, all those moments when someone texted, "Just until I get paid," or "Can you cover this and I'll get you back?" That follow-up never came. I shredded the folder. That night, I walked 3 blocks to the little cafe on the corner. It was nearly empty. Just a man reading the paper and a college student working on her laptop. I ordered a slice of apple pie and a coffee. I sat by the window. I didn't check my phone. Halfway through the pie, the door opened. Caroline walked in. She spotted me right away and came over without asking. "We need to talk," she said. I looked up. "Now's not really a good time." "Seriously, Rachel." She sat across from me anyway. "I just came from Mom's," she said. "She's been crying. Dad won't stop defending you. Do you know how hard this has been for us?" I didn't answer. She leaned in slightly. "You made everything explode, and now you're sitting here like nothing happened." "I'm sitting here," I said calmly, "because I'm tired of being the one who makes sure no one explodes." Her jaw tightened. "You're just trying to punish us." I shook my head. "No, I'm just living differently now." She stared at me for a moment, then sat back. "You've never talked like this. I've never had the space to." Caroline didn't respond right away. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a wrinkled envelope. "This is yours, from Dad. He wrote it but wasn't sure you'd want it." I took it, didn't open it. "I should go," she said and stood. "Just think about how far you've taken this." I nodded but said nothing. When she left, I finished my coffee, folded the envelope, and placed it in my coat pocket. At home, I didn't open it right away. I fed the cat, started the dishwasher, wiped down the counter. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and finally unfolded the letter. It was handwritten, short, careful. Rachel, I didn't say much after your email. That was on purpose. I needed to think about it. I'm still thinking about it. But I want you to know this. I don't want to go back to how things were. If you're open to it, I'd like to start over. Not reset, just start from here. Dad. I folded the letter and set it beside Mom's. This wasn't repair. It wasn't reunion. But it was something new. The weight had shifted, and I wasn't the one carrying it anymore. It had been a week since I read Dad's letter. I hadn't replied, but I also hadn't thrown it away. That Sunday morning, I took a walk down to the park where the farmers' market sets up. I didn't need anything. I just wanted to move. The vendors were setting up late-season apples, candles, quilted pot holders, and jars of fig jam. I stopped at the stall with handmade cutting boards and picked one up, running my hand along the grain. The man behind the table smiled but didn't say anything. When I got home, I set the board on my counter. I didn't need it, but it looked like something that belonged in a home where meals were made with care. That afternoon, I roasted vegetables I'd never cooked before. I took my time. Around 4, my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from Caroline. I didn't answer. The message played as I stirred a pot of soup. Rachel. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this whole thing has gone too far. You've embarrassed Mom. You've hurt Dad. You've turned people against me. She paused. I hope you're proud of yourself. Then the line cut. I finished cooking, ate by the window, washed each dish carefully, and put them away one by one. Later that evening, a message came from Madison. Caroline's telling everyone you've poisoned the family. But most people aren't listening anymore. I typed back, let her say what she needs to, then added, I'm not the buffer anymore. 10 minutes later, another message came through, this one from Jenna. Just so you know, Uncle Rob called out Caroline during dinner last night, said it wasn't okay what happened to you, said you shouldn't have been seated like that. It was uncomfortable, but long overdue. I stared at the message a while before replying. Thank you for telling me. The following morning, the group chat lit up again. First from Aunt Margie, we're going to postpone Easter planning until things settle. Then Dad, let's keep things quiet for now. No one mentioned my name, but I didn't need them to. That afternoon, I closed the laptop and took out the framed photo I'd never given to Dad. The one with the quote he used to say to me as a kid etched onto the frame. It had sat untouched in my closet since the night of the birthday dinner. I set it on the shelf beside the window. The sunlight caught the edge of the glass just right. Later that evening, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Mom was standing there. She held a plain paper bag and looked like she hadn't fully planned what she was going to say. I brought you some soup, she said. I stepped aside without saying anything. She walked in slowly, like the floor might shift under her feet. We sat at the kitchen table. She looked around at the tidy counter, the fresh flowers in the jar, the soft hum of the refrigerator. This place feels different, she said. I nodded. She set the bag down and kept her hands folded. Your sister's upset, but I think she's used to taking up space without noticing who's missing from the room. She paused again. I did that too. I didn't respond. She looked at me, eyes steady. You were always easy. That's what I used to tell people. Rachel's easy. She doesn't need much. I met her gaze. I know that's not a compliment, she added. I just didn't realize it wasn't love either. She took a breath, then stood. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to leave this, she said, tapping the bag. And to say I see it now. All of it. She didn't hug me, didn't linger, just walked to the door and paused before she left. I don't want to go back to the way things were, she said. But I'd like to learn something new if you ever let me. I nodded once. After she left, I opened the bag. Inside was a container of homemade chicken soup, a small roll, and a folded napkin with my name written on it in her handwriting. I sat at the table and ate in silence, not because I was alone, but because I had space now. That night, I added one more rule to the file. Rule 7. You don't have to forgive to move forward, but you do get to stop carrying what isn't yours. I closed the laptop and turned off the light. A week after my mother left the soup and note, I found myself standing at my bookshelf, running my fingers along the spines of books I hadn't touched in years. Some still had sticky notes poking from the edges, quotes I once loved but had forgotten. I pulled one down and opened it to a marked page. The line was underlined in blue ink. You are allowed to outgrow those who didn't know how to love you. I closed the book and placed it on my desk. Then I opened the drawer where I'd tucked the letters from Mom and Dad and set them beside it. Not as a display and not for keepsake. Just to look at them as they were acknowledgments. Not apologies wrapped in excuses. Not demands for return. Just recognition. That afternoon I hosted another dinner. Same mismatched napkins, same wide smiles from the people who'd shown up the first time and kept showing up since. Someone brought a peach cobbler. Someone else brought deviled eggs that didn't last 10 minutes. There was no seating plan, no rules, no old weight hanging in the air. Halfway through the meal, Talia raised her glass again. But this time, she didn't toast to me. She just smiled and said, "To choosing peace, even when it's quieter than the noise you came from." We all lifted our glasses. And in that moment, I realized something. I used to think that healing would feel like thunder, like some dramatic moment where everything changed at once. But the truth is, it was quieter than that. It was a drawer finally closed, a message left unanswered, a meal enjoyed without waiting for someone to ask what I brought. It was the simple, steady decision to stop sitting where I wasn't wanted and to stop explaining why. I never reopened the shared family account. I never returned to the group chat, and I didn't attend Easter that year. But I did send a note, just a short one. I hope the day is peaceful. I'll be spending mine in my own way. I didn't get a reply, and that was okay. By spring, I started keeping fresh flowers on my table, nothing extravagant, just something in bloom. I made a habit of walking each morning, even if it was just to the corner and back. And sometimes I'd sit with my coffee and reread the list I'd written, the rules for my table. I didn't need to add anything. They still held. I didn't get justice the way I used to imagine it. There was no grand apology, no teary reunion, no sudden transformation in the people who hurt me. But there was something better. I found peace. Not the kind that waits for everyone to change, but the kind that shows up the moment you stop abandoning yourself. And for the first time, I wasn't waiting for a seat. I already had one. Thank you for listening. If this story reminded you of your own strength or helped you think about your place at the table, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this one, feel free to follow along. I'll be right here.